My name is Kay. At 31, I was running a highly successful tech company, a fact my family was completely unaware of. I decided to go home for my 32nd birthday, anticipating nothing more than a simple celebration, perhaps a cake my mom made. Instead, sitting across from me at our old kitchen table, my mother told me they had canceled my birthday dinner because the money was needed to fund my younger sister Sophia's upcoming trip to Europe. The old feeling of being second best immediately resurfaced, even though my family had no clue just how much my life had changed. 2 days later, my phone rang during dinner, a moment that would unknowingly alter the course of my life. Growing up in Oakwood, California, a small town with more trees than stoplights, I always felt like the outsider in my family. Our house was a comfortable, modest home with faded blue paint and a porch swing that creaked every time it moved. My dad, Thomas, a retired engineer, spent his weekends in the garage fixing up old cars. My mom, Laura, a retired third-grade teacher, always made our house smell of freshly baked cookies and hummed a soft tune while she worked. And then there was my sister Sophia, 5 years my junior, who was the undeniable star of our family. From the moment she was old enough to walk, she charmed everyone with her innate charisma and ability. She collected accomplishments, from ballet recitals to soccer championships to debate team victories, the way other kids collected trading cards. Our living room mantelpiece was weighed down with her trophies and medals, while my academic awards usually found their way into a drawer. My mother used to tell her friends at church that Sophia had such a natural talent, while I, Kay, just worked very hard. The message was always clear: Sophia had been blessed with natural ability, and I just had to make up for it with effort. I was 8 when I brought home my very first perfect spelling test. My father glanced at it, gave me a quick word of praise, and went back to his newspaper. That same evening, my parents gave Sophia ice cream and endless praise just for stacking 3 blocks in what they called an exceptionally advanced pattern. That pattern of behavior continued throughout my entire childhood. My straight A's were simply expected, never celebrated. When I made the honor roll every year in high school, my mother would simply nod and remark that it was what happened when you studied. In contrast, when Sophia got her first B+, my parents took her out for a special dinner to celebrate her breakthrough. All of the money in our family seemed to be funneled towards Sophia's activities, from expensive dance lessons and soccer camps to custom debate suits. Nothing was too expensive. When I needed a new graphing calculator or wanted to attend a summer science program, I was always gently reminded about our family budget and encouraged to find a part-time job. By the time I was 16, I was working weekends at the local bookstore and saving every dollar I could for college. My parents had set up a college fund for both of us, but Sophia's expenses had slowly drained my account. My mother told me I was so responsible with money, as if my forced frugality was a virtue instead of a necessity. My birthdays became nothing more than a predictable source of disappointment. My 16th birthday dinner was cancelled because it was on the same night as Sophia's regional dance competition. My 18th birthday was remembered 2 days late with a card and a $20 bill that had been clearly purchased in a rush. By the time I turned 21, I had stopped expecting anything at all. The relationship between Sophia and me was a complicated one. She wasn't deliberately cruel, she was just used to being the center of attention. Although I resented the inequality, I couldn't bring myself to resent her. After all, she was my little sister. Sometimes, in rare moments alone when our parents weren't around, we would act like normal sisters, sharing secrets and laughing together. But those moments became less and less frequent as we grew up. My father, Thomas, now in his early 60s, with salt and pepper hair and tough hands, had always been a man of few words. He showed his love through practical actions, like fixing my car before I left for college and putting up bookshelves in my old bedroom. But his eyes lit up whenever Sophia entered a room, and he always seemed to find his voice when he was asking her about her day, her friends, or her dreams. My mother, Laura, with her constantly rushed way of being and reading glasses perched on her head, managed our family with efficiency. She kept track of everyone's schedule, prepared well-balanced meals, and kept our house immaculate. Yet, her organizational skills seemed to fail when it came to remembering my accomplishments or preferences. She could remember Sophia's favorite color from every year of her life but consistently gave me gifts in colors I disliked. At 25, Sophia, with our mother's blonde hair and our father's confident posture, had no idea what it was like to truly struggle. My parents' constant attention and resources had always made her path easy. After my parents fully paid for her college, she decided to become a yoga instructor. She said she needed to find her true self, and my parents nodded in understanding, never mentioning the business degree that had cost them so much money. When I graduated from college with honors in computer science, I received a card from my family, who couldn't attend because of Sophia's dance showcase. I stood there alone after the ceremony, watching other graduates surrounded by their cheering families, and made a life-changing decision. I decided that I would build a life of success so undeniable that my family would be forced to see me. I put my few belongings in my used car and drove to San Francisco without a second thought. The physical distance between Oakwood and San Francisco was only a few hundred miles, but emotionally, it felt like I was crossing an entire ocean. My path to success began in a tiny studio apartment in San Francisco, which somehow cost more than my parents' mortgage. With only my computer science degree and my determination, I found an entry-level coding job at a mid-sized tech company. I worked 14-hour days, took on every project no one else wanted, and spent my weekends learning new programming languages while my friends were out enjoying the city's nightlife. In those early years, I called my family every Sunday. Our conversations always followed the same pattern. My parents would give me detailed updates about Sophia's latest achievements, ask me a few surface-level questions about my job, and then rush to get off the phone. I never corrected them when they assumed I was just a replaceable part of a corporate machine. Part of me wanted to prove myself before I revealed the truth. Within 2 years, I had been promoted to senior developer and then to team lead. By year 3, I was in charge of the company's most profitable division. But the corporate path felt too limited for my ambitions. I had ideas that I believed could revolutionize educational technology, but my bosses were too cautious to pursue them. So at 26, I took the biggest risk of my life. I pulled out my modest savings, got a small business loan, and founded a company called Novatech. Our mission was to develop artificial intelligence systems that could adapt to each student's unique learning style, making a good education available to everyone, no matter their circumstances or location. The first few months were terrifying. I ate ramen noodles for dinner most nights and slept on an air mattress in our small office. The big breakthrough came 18 months later. After we ran a successful pilot program in 3 inner-city schools, our adaptive learning platform got the attention of a major tech investor. Test scores went up by 30%, teacher satisfaction improved, and student engagement doubled. The investor offered $5 million for a 20% stake in my company. That investment completely changed my life. I moved from my small apartment into a large condo in Pacific Heights with incredible views of the Golden Gate Bridge. My company moved into a new, sleek office in the financial district, complete with all the expected startup perks, like cold brew on tap, ergonomic desks, and a rooftop garden. But the most valuable thing I added to my life was Jessica, the executive assistant I hired to manage my increasingly complicated schedule. Jessica's impeccable organizational skills and calm nature quickly made her indispensable. She became more than just an assistant, she was my confidant and the closest thing I had to a friend in years. She knew when to encourage me to rest, when to order my favorite Thai food during late nights at work, and how to diplomatically reschedule meetings when I needed time to be creative. She was also the only person who knew the full extent of my complicated relationship with my family. After overhearing a dismissive phone call with my mom, Jessica asked me, completely incredulous, if my parents had any idea I was a millionaire CEO. I just shrugged. I told her that they thought I worked in an office doing something with computers and that I had never corrected their assumption. Jessica just shook her head, mentioning that the Christmas bonus I had sent them the year before was more money than most people made in a whole year. I explained to her that I had told them it was a company-wide holiday gift for the families of all employees. The truth was that my parents had never asked for any details about my career. In our short phone calls, they seemed satisfied with my vague answers about work and would eagerly move on to sharing updates on Sophia's latest yoga certification or travel plans. After years of feeling invisible, I had simply stopped trying to be seen. But my professional success was becoming increasingly difficult to keep a secret. The previous month, I had been featured in Forbes' 30 Under 30 list. Novatech had grown to 150 employees, and our educational software was being used in over 500 schools all over the country. And just last week, we had signed a $40 million contract with one of the largest school districts in the country, a deal that would bring our adaptive learning technology to almost 1 million students. The success brought with it a strange mix of feeling validated and feeling empty. I had accomplished everything I had set out to do professionally, but the personal recognition I had always wanted from my family remained out of reach, mostly because I had never given them the chance to acknowledge it. As my 32nd birthday got closer, I found myself staring at the only family picture I had on my desk. The photo was from Sophia's high school graduation, and all of us were smiling under the California sun. Despite everything, they were still my family. I thought it was time to try and close the gap I had helped create between us. On a whim, I called my mom and told her that I wanted to come home for the weekend of my birthday. She was clearly surprised, but she quickly recovered. She said that of course, they would love to see me. I asked Jessica to clear my schedule, turning down her offer to arrange a private jet for me. I insisted on driving, feeling a need to take the journey in a way that felt connected to my past. I wanted it to be just a normal visit home. Jessica looked skeptical but agreed. She asked if she should ship any of my birthday gifts to my parents' house. The idea of my employees' extravagant presents showing up at my parents' modest home made me laugh. I told her absolutely not, and that as far as my parents knew, I was just a regular office worker who could barely afford the rent in San Francisco. As I packed a bag for the weekend, purposefully choosing plain clothes over my usual designer clothes, I wondered if I was making a mistake. Part of me wanted to arrive in a blaze of glory, forcing them to acknowledge everything I had achieved. But another part of me, maybe the wiser part, knew that a real connection couldn't be built on resentment or getting even. I decided to go into the weekend with an open mind. Maybe this birthday would finally be different. Maybe after all this time, my family would finally see me for who I was. The 5-hour drive from San Francisco to Oakwood gave me plenty of time to think about how things would go. I wondered if my parents would notice the subtle changes success had made in me, like my more confident posture, the quality of my simple clothes, and the lack of worry lines that financial security had erased. I also wondered if Sophia and I would find common ground as adults. I had intentionally rented a modest sedan instead of driving my Tesla, wanting to gently ease into my new reality rather than just announce it. Oakwood looked smaller than I remembered it. The main street still had Wilson's Hardware, Patty's Diner, and the Sunshine Bakery, but now they were mixed in with chain coffee shops and cellular stores. I drove past my old high school, then past the bookstore where I had worked weekends, and finally turned onto Maple Street, where my childhood home was waiting, looking exactly the same but also somehow smaller. My mother opened the door before I could even knock, and her face lit up with a smile that made me question all my feelings of resentment. She exclaimed my name, pulling me into a hug that smelled of her familiar lavender perfume. She held me at arm's length, her eyes looking me over in that way only a mother can, making me feel both loved and scrutinized at the same time. She said that city life seemed to suit me. My father appeared behind her, his tall body slightly hunched, with hair that was thinner than I remembered. He gave me an awkward side hug and said that there I was. His usual garage clothes had been replaced by a clean button-up shirt, which was his version of getting dressed up for my arrival. The house was exactly as I remembered it, the same faded floral couch, the same landscape paintings on the walls, and the same family photos where Sophia's achievements were front and center. The only new thing was a large corkboard covered in postcards and brochures of European landmarks, a vision board for Sophia's upcoming trip. My mother told me that Sophia would be home soon as she led me into the kitchen where something delicious was bubbling on the stove. My mother mentioned that Sophia had been so excited to see me and that she had just needed to finish teaching her afternoon yoga class. I helped my mother prepare dinner, and we fell back into our old rhythm of her directing and me assisting. As I chopped vegetables, she caught me up on neighborhood gossip, church activities, and, of course, Sophia's latest accomplishments. My mother proudly told me that the yoga studio had made Sophia the lead instructor the previous month, saying they never promoted anyone that fast but that Sophia just had a way with people. I just nodded, wondering if my mother knew that I now led company-wide meetings with investors who were worth billions of dollars. Instead, I simply told her that was great and that Sophia had always been a natural teacher. My father sat at the kitchen table, pretending to read his newspaper but occasionally looking up at me with an expression I couldn't quite understand. He finally asked how my computer job was during a break in my mother's monologue. My standard response was that it was going well, that it was busy but good. He asked me if I was making decent money, which surprised me because of his interest. Before I could answer, the front door flew open, and Sophia's voice echoed through the house, announcing that she was home and asking where the birthday girl was. Sophia bounded into the kitchen, a whirlwind of blonde hair and athletic energy. At 25, she looked like a model for expensive activewear. She squealed my name and hugged me with genuine excitement, telling me I looked amazing and that San Francisco must have some serious magic. Dinner was a lively affair, completely dominated by Sophia's energetic descriptions of her yoga classes, her recent hiking trip to Sedona, and, most importantly, her upcoming European trip. She explained, her eyes bright with excitement, that she had been manifesting this trip for years, a 3-month backpacking trip through 7 different countries. Sophia told us the trip would be life-changing. My mother said Sophia had been saving up, but a quick glance at my father told me otherwise. Sophia, with a laugh, clarified that while yoga instruction was spiritually fulfilling, it wasn't exactly lucrative, so our parents were helping with the flights. My father cleared his throat, avoiding eye contact, and said that my mother and he needed to speak with me about my birthday dinner. My mother told me that they had originally planned a nice celebration at Romano's for my birthday the next day, a reservation they had made months ago. I remembered Romano's as the nicest restaurant in Oakwood, the same place we had celebrated Sophia's high school graduation. The memory made my heart warm. But they had to cancel the reservation, she continued, her voice apologetic but emotionless. They had to put the money towards Sophia's airline tickets. She explained that airfare prices kept rising and they needed to book the tickets soon so Sophia wouldn't miss her yoga retreat in Bali. The warmth I had just felt drained away, replaced by a familiar cold feeling. I simply told her that I understood. My father quickly added that they could do something simple instead, maybe just order pizza the next night. Sophia at least looked a little embarrassed. She said she had told them to just postpone her trip, but the retreat dates were set and this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for her career. My mother nodded vigorously in agreement, telling me that I understood because I had an established career, but Sophia was at a crucial point in hers and these connections could really help her become a successful yoga instructor. I looked at all of their faces, my mother's concerned face, my father's uncomfortable face, and Sophia's barely contained excitement, and realized nothing had changed. I was still the responsible one, the one who was expected to understand, to step aside, to need less. I forced myself to smile through the hurt and told them that I understood and that pizza sounded great. I saw the relief on my parents' faces. My mother immediately began talking about which pizzeria made the best gluten-free crust for Sophia, while my father retreated behind his newspaper. Just like that, my 32nd birthday had been downgraded and dismissed. I sat quietly, moving the food around on my plate, holding back the urge to tell them that I could buy the entire restaurant if I wanted to, let alone just pay for a simple birthday dinner. But a part of me, the stubborn part, wanted them to value me, not for my success. I wanted them to see their daughter, not a successful CEO. I wondered why I had even come home as I listened to Sophia go on and on about every stop on her European trip. I guess a part of me, the childish part, had hoped things would be different. But I was 31 years old, had achieved things I never dreamed I could, and was still completely invisible at my own family's dinner table. Nothing improved the next morning. My mother had forgotten to buy the coffee I liked, only remembering that Sophia didn't drink caffeine. I had to walk to a local cafe to get some. When I returned home, the house was full of energy, but none of it was for my birthday. My mother was helping Sophia organize her travel documents, and my father was researching power adapters for Europe online. My mother asked me if I would mind running to the store, not even looking up from Sophia's passport. She said they needed ingredients for dinner and that she couldn't step away from this right now. Swallowing my disappointment, I agreed. Even on my birthday, I was an afterthought, only useful for running errands. As I drove to the grocery store in my rental car, I checked my phone and saw dozens of birthday messages from my employees and business associates. Jessica had sent a picture of the beautiful cake waiting for me at my office in San Francisco with a message saying they missed me and to let her know if I needed an emergency extraction from my family. The contrast between my two worlds had never been so obvious. In San Francisco, I was valued and admired. Here in Oakwood, I was just Kay, the reliable, unremarkable sister who would obviously understand why her birthday dinner had to be sacrificed for her sister's trip. That evening, we were all sitting around the dining table again. My mother had ordered pizza, just as she promised, remembering Sophia's dietary needs but forgetting that I had always hated mushrooms, which covered half the pizza. My father had bought a small grocery store cake, and my name was spelled incorrectly. No one had even tried to fix it. As we ate, my father asked me to tell them more about my computer job and if I was still at the same company. The question was my chance to tell them the truth, but something held me back. I gave a vague answer, just saying that I was still in tech and that things were going well. My mother said that was nice and immediately turned her attention to Sophia to talk about her connecting flight in London. Sophia went into another detailed description of her travel plans, even mentioning the Instagram photos she was going to take at each location. My parents listened carefully, asking questions and making suggestions. Sophia said she was thinking about starting a travel blog and maybe even making money from it if she got enough followers. She thought it could be the start of her brand as a global yoga influencer. My mother said that was a wonderful idea and that Sophia had always been so photogenic and creative. My father proudly called Sophia an entrepreneur. I almost choked on my pizza. I wanted to tell them about the 3 patents I held, the company I had built from nothing, the educational technology that was changing the lives of thousands of students. I wanted to tell them that I was not just an entrepreneur, but a creator of opportunities for others. Instead, I just reached for my water glass and remained silent. My mother, with a vague look of recognition, asked me if I hadn't done something with a website once. Before I could answer, my phone rang. The screen displayed Jessica's number, my code for an important call I shouldn't ignore. Under normal circumstances, I would have taken the call privately, but my mother waved her hand dismissively and told me to just answer it because she knew my little office probably needed me even on my birthday. Her condescending tone made me put the phone on speaker. Jessica's efficient, professional voice filled the room as I said hello. She apologized for interrupting my family time but said she needed to confirm details for the next week. She said my private jet was scheduled for 7 a.m. Tuesday for a meeting with the education minister in Paris and asked if I wanted to book my usual suite at Le Marais or try the peninsula this time. The silence that followed was absolute. My father's fork clattered onto his plate, my mother froze with her wine glass halfway to her lips, and Sophia's mouth just hung open in the middle of a sentence. I stared at my phone, just as shocked as they were. Jessica and I had no Paris meetings scheduled, and while the company did occasionally charter private flights for international business, I had never heard about this particular trip. I told Jessica carefully that there might be some confusion about my schedule. Jessica, in a very unlike her flustered voice, said she was so sorry and had just seen an email from the French delegation. She explained that they had specifically requested I present the educational implementation plan in person and that the board thought chartering a jet would be the most efficient option given my tight schedule next week. She asked if she should just tell them I was unavailable. My family's 3 pairs of eyes were staring at me in complete disbelief. I took a deep breath, knowing that the moment of truth had arrived, although not at all how I had expected it to. I told Jessica to tell them I needed to review the materials before confirming, trying to keep my professional composure even though my heart was racing. I also told her that we would talk tomorrow about the travel arrangements. Jessica said of course and apologized again for the interruption before wishing me a happy birthday. As I hung up, the dining room remained frozen in place. My father was the first to speak, his voice barely a whisper as he asked about the private jet and about Paris. I looked at their shocked faces and realized there was no going back. I told them that I had been meaning to tell them something about my work. My father asked me sharply exactly what I did, the newspaper puzzle he had been working on lying forgotten next to his plate. I took a deep breath. This wasn't how I had imagined telling them about my success, but maybe there wasn't a perfect way. I told them that I was the founder and CEO of a company called Novatech, and that we developed artificial intelligence systems for educational use. My mother's forehead was creased in confusion. My mother said that I had told them I just worked at a tech company in an office. I carefully told her that I did work at a tech company in an office, but that I didn't work for anyone else, I owned the company. I had built it from scratch 6 years before. Sophia let out a short, unbelieving laugh and asked if I owned a company that had private jets. I clarified that we didn't own the jets, we chartered them when necessary for international business. I said that Novatech was a major player in educational technology and we currently had contracts with over 500 schools all over the country and were expanding internationally. My father leaned forward, his engineering mind trying to process the details. He asked how many employees I had. I told him 150 at the last count and that we would probably add 50 more after our newest contract was implemented. My mother slowly asked me if I was the boss, the actual boss of all of those people, as if she was trying to understand the idea. I nodded and watched as the realization dawned on their faces. My mother's expression changed from confusion to something more complex, a mix of pride, embarrassment, and maybe even a hint of defensiveness. She asked me why I hadn't told them, her voice suggesting I had somehow deceived them. I asked her quietly when I would have told them. I said that our phone calls lasted 10 minutes at most and were usually about Sophia's latest accomplishments, and that they had never really asked about my work beyond whether I still had the same job. My father flinched a little at this, looking down at the table. Sophia shifted uncomfortably in her seat. My mother argued that they always asked how work is going and that I would always just say that it was fine or busy but good. She asked how they were supposed to know I was running some big, important company. With a hint of hurt in my voice, I told them that Novatech had been featured in Forbes just last month and that our educational platform had received a National Innovation Award the previous year. I told them that if they had ever Googled my name, they would have seen dozens of articles and interviews. My father looked truly upset, saying that they had no idea. I told him that was exactly the point, that they never thought to look, they never imagined I could be doing anything noteworthy. My mother, with her chin up, said that wasn't fair and that they had always been supportive of my career. I challenged her gently and asked her when the last time was that she had asked me a specific question about my work. I told her that when Sophia decided to become a yoga instructor, they had researched everything about her certifications and knew the names of her favorite poses and her studio schedule. I asked her if she had even known the name of my company before tonight or what our software actually did. My mother opened her mouth to answer but then closed it, her expression conflicted. Sophia, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly asked if this was all about me being rich now. She asked if I had just come home to show off how successful I was compared to the rest of them. Her accusation stung. I told her that was not it, that I had come home hoping to reconnect with my family. I said that I had purposefully minimized my success because I wanted them to see me for who I was, not what I had achieved. She told me, her eyes flashing, that I was just throwing it in their faces and making them feel bad for canceling a dinner reservation when I could apparently buy the whole restaurant. I told her, keeping my voice level, that I hadn't planned for Jessica to call, but that yes, it did hurt that after all these years, my birthday was still the first thing to be sacrificed. I told her it hurt that they just assumed I would understand and accept it without question because that was what I had always done. My father cleared his throat and said that they never meant to make me feel less important, they just thought that Sophia needed the support more. I finished his thought, telling him that that was what they had always thought. I told them that maybe that had been true when we were kids, but that I was 32 years old now and they still treated me like my feelings and accomplishments mattered less. My mother's eyes filled with tears and she said they were proud of me, too, and had always been proud of how responsible and independent I was. I told her that was exactly the problem, that they were proud that I didn't need them and that I never caused problems or made demands. I said that they appreciated my absence more than my presence. Sophia abruptly pushed away from the table. She said this was ridiculous, that I had disappeared to San Francisco, barely kept in touch, and had hidden my entire life from them, and that I was now blaming them for not knowing about it. She said that if I had shared anything real about myself over the past decade, they would know me better. There was enough truth in her words to make me pause. I wondered if I had withdrawn too completely, if my hurt had caused me to build a wall that was too high for my family to climb. I surprised her by admitting she was right. I told her that I had stopped trying to be seen a long time ago, but that it didn't change the fact that they were so quick to cancel my birthday plans for Sophia's trip without a second thought. I told them that that pattern had been consistent my entire life. My father stood up, his face filled with worry. He said that he thought we all needed some time to process this. He apologized for my birthday dinner and said they should have found another solution. My mother wiped her eyes and suggested they could still call Romano's to see if they had a table available tonight. The suggestion felt like it was too little, too late. I told them that I needed some space and that I was going to get a hotel room for the night. My mother protested, telling me not to be ridiculous because my room was all made up for me. I told her I needed to think and that I had to make some work calls, an excuse that felt safer than the emotional truth. Sophia crossed her arms, telling me that I was running away again and that some things never change. Her words hit harder than she knew. I wondered if I was running away, but staying there felt impossible with all of my hurt suddenly exposed. I told them I would call tomorrow and that we could talk more then as I grabbed my purse and phone. My father followed me to the door. He quietly said that he was sorry, not just about the dinner, but about a lot of things. I just nodded, unable to trust my voice. I got into my rental car and finally let the tears fall once I was safely inside. As I drove toward the only hotel in Oakwood, a place I had never been able to afford growing up, I wondered if I had just done irreparable damage to my family, or if this painful honesty might actually lead to something better. The Oakwood Inn was nowhere near the luxury I was used to, but its presidential suite, the only one in the building, gave me the privacy and space I desperately needed. After I checked in, I sat on the edge of the king-sized bed and called Jessica. I laughed despite everything. Well, your improvisation skills are impressive, but now my family thinks I regularly jet off to meet with foreign dignitaries. Don't you, though? Last month, it was that education summit in Tokyo. That's different, I protested weakly, then sighed. Actually, I don't know what's real anymore. I've been living a double life for so long. After updating Jessica on the family drama and assuring her I'd be back in the office Monday, I took a long shower and tried to sort through my feelings. The hurt was still there, a lifetime of feeling secondary doesn't disappear in one evening, but underneath it was something else, relief, perhaps. The exhausting charade was over. I slept surprisingly well and woke to several text messages. My mother had written, "Please come home for breakfast. We need to talk." Sophia's message was shorter, "Sorry about last night. Kind of. My father, never comfortable with technology, had simply written, "Call me." Instead of responding, I ordered room service and spent the morning catching up on work emails. Around 11, there was a knock at my door. When I opened it, my father stood there looking uncertain and older than I remembered. "May I come in?" he asked. I stepped aside, noticing how he surveyed the suite with widened eyes. "Nice place," he commented. "Though I guess you're used to better." "It's perfectly fine," I said, gesturing for him to sit in one of the armchairs by the window. "How did you know where to find me?" "Small town," he reminded me with a slight smile. "Margie at the front desk is your mother's second cousin. But don't worry. I swore her to secrecy. Your mother doesn't know I'm here." We sat in awkward silence for a moment before he spoke again. "Kay, I owe you an apology." "Many apologies, actually." "Dad, you don't have to." He held up his hand. "Please let me say this. I've been thinking all night about what you said about how we've treated you and Sophia differently. And you're right. We have." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped together. "When you were born, you were this serious little baby. You rarely cried. You slept through the night early. You hit all your milestones ahead of schedule. You were so capable. Even as a toddler, you'd play independently, figure things out for yourself." He smiled at the memory. Then Sophia came along, and she was the opposite. Fickle, demanding, always needing attention. We got into the habit of focusing more energy on her because she seemed to need it more. "You were always so self-sufficient." "Being self-sufficient wasn't always a choice," I said quietly. He nodded, his expression pained. "I know that now. We mistook your independence for not needing us, when really we trained you to expect less from us." He ran a hand through his thinning hair. "I was proud of you, Kay. Always. But I realize now I rarely told you that. I just assumed you knew." I needed to hear it sometimes, I admitted. I needed to feel like my achievements mattered, too. "They do matter," he said firmly. "What you've accomplished is incredible. I spent half the night looking up your company online. The work you're doing with those educational programs, it's amazing, Kay. Truly groundbreaking." The pride in his voice loosened something tight in my chest. "Thank you, Dad. No wonder you stopped sharing things with us," he continued. "We never made space for your success. We were so busy celebrating Sophia's small victories that we missed your enormous ones." We talked for over an hour, covering years of misunderstandings and missed connections. He told me how he had always related more easily to Sophia's outgoing personality, while my analytical mind reminded him of his own father, a brilliant but distant man he had struggled to please. I shared how I had interpreted their focus on Sophia as evidence that I was somehow less lovable, less worthy of attention. "That was never true," he insisted, his voice rough with emotion. "We just thought you were the one who had it all figured out. We worried more about Sophia because she seemed more fragile." As our conversation wound down, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Please come home. I made your favorite lemon cake." I showed my father the message, and he smiled. "She's been baking since dawn. Stress baking, she calls it. The kitchen looks like a flower bomb exploded." "I should talk to her too," I acknowledged. He nodded. "And Sophia, she's struggling with all this in her own way." As we prepared to leave, my father hesitated by the door. "Kay, I want you to know something. I'm not just proud of what you've achieved. I'm proud of who you are, your integrity, your determination, the way you built something meaningful instead of just chasing money. Even if you had never founded that company, you would still be extraordinary." His words, so long awaited, brought tears to my eyes. "Thanks, Dad." That means more than you know. My mother was waiting on the porch when we arrived. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hands twisting her apron nervously. When she saw me, she rushed forward and embraced me with unusual fierceness. "I'm so sorry," she whispered against my hair. "I've been a terrible mother." "No, Mom," I protested, holding her tight. "Not terrible, just human." Inside, over slices of perfect lemon cake, she had remembered it was my favorite. After all, my mother offered her own perspective. "I always thought you were the strong one," she explained. "The one who could handle anything." Sophia needed so much reassurance, so much support. "You seemed so capable, so sure of yourself." "I was faking it most of the time," I admitted. "I just learned early that showing need or disappointment didn't get me very far." My mother's face crumpled. "Kay, I never wanted you to feel that way." Our conversation was interrupted by Sophia's arrival. She entered cautiously, her usual confidence dimmed. "Hey," she said, hovering in the doorway. "Can we talk?" My parents discreetly retreated to the backyard, leaving us alone in the living room. Sophia sat across from me, uncharacteristically fidgeting with the edge of a throw pillow. "So," she began, "you're basically a tech mogul." I smiled slightly. "I wouldn't go that far." "According to Google, you should," she countered. "I spent hours last night looking you up." "Why did you never tell me any of this?" I considered the question carefully. Partly because no one ever asked. Partly because I was afraid. Afraid of what? That it wouldn't matter. That even knowing I had built something significant, you would all still see me as boring, responsible Kay. The afterthought. Sophia winced. "That's not fair. Isn't it? You called me the birthday girl yesterday, but did you actually remember it was my birthday before Mom mentioned canceling dinner?" Her silence was answer enough. "Look," I continued more gently. "I'm not blameless here. I withdrew. I kept secrets. I built a wall between my life there and my life here. But can you understand why?" Sophia nodded slowly. "I think so. And I'm sorry about the birthday dinner. I should have insisted they keep the reservation." "It's not about the dinner," I said. "It's about the pattern, about always being the one expected to understand, to give way, to need less." "I never saw it that way," she admitted. "I just thought that was our dynamic. You were the serious, successful one. I was the free spirit who needed more help." "Maybe we've both been playing roles assigned to us long ago," I suggested. "Maybe we both need to see each other more clearly." Sophia reached for my hand. "I would like that. And by the way, belated happy birthday, sis. For what it's worth, I always looked up to you, even when I was getting all the attention." That evening, I suggested we all go out to dinner. Not to Romano's, but to Elio's, the finest restaurant in the neighboring town. As we enjoyed a meal that cost more than my parents typically spent on a week's groceries, we talked more openly than we had in years. My mother asked detailed questions about Novatech. My father wanted to understand the technological innovations behind our educational platform. Even Sophia showed genuine interest in my work life. "We should plan a trip to San Francisco," my mother suggested. "See your office, your home, really understand your life there." "I would like that," I said, meaning it. And speaking of trips, 3 weeks after that revelatory birthday weekend, I stood in the private terminal at San Francisco International Airport, watching my family's wide-eyed reactions. My father examined the sleek private jet with an engineer's appreciation for its design. My mother nervously clutched her new luggage. I had sent them all in preparation for this trip. Sophia bounced on her toes with barely contained excitement. "I still can't believe you did this," she said for perhaps the 10th time that morning. "Consider it making up for lost time," I replied, smiling at her enthusiasm. Instead of funding just Sophia's European adventure, I had arranged for our entire family to spend 2 weeks together, 1 week at a luxury villa in Tuscany and another exploring Paris with accommodations at the very luxurious hotel Jessica had mentioned in her fateful call. It was extravagant, yes, but after years of distance, I wanted quality time together in a setting where old patterns couldn't easily reassert themselves. The past few weeks had brought significant changes in our family dynamic. My parents had visited my San Francisco condo, toured the Novatech offices, and met my team. Seeing me in my professional environment, confident, respected, clearly in command, had shifted something fundamental in how they perceived me. No longer was I just reliable Kay who would understand if her needs came last. I was Kay Reynolds, CEO and innovator, a woman who had built something meaningful through vision and determination. More importantly, though, I was their daughter, not perfect, not invulnerable, but worthy of the same care and consideration they had always given Sophia. Our conversations had become more balanced, with my parents making visible efforts to ask about my life and actually listen to the answers. Sophia and I were developing a more authentic adult relationship, one based on mutual respect rather than our childhood roles. On our last night in Tuscany, sitting on the villa terrace overlooking rolling vineyards bathed in sunset light, my father raised his wine glass in a toast. "To Kay," he said, his voice warm with pride and tinged with regret for lost years. "Not just for this incredible trip, but for having the courage to break our family's patterns. For showing us who you really are, even when we were slow to see." My mother wiped away a tear and added, "And for forgiving us for our blindness." Sophia added her own glass to the toast, to second chances and new beginnings. As our glasses clinked in the golden light, I felt a sense of peace I had not known in decades. The hurt had not completely disappeared, deep patterns rarely heal without leaving scars. But something new was growing in its place, understanding, forgiveness, a more honest connection. The day after returning from Europe, I surprised my family again. This time with news that Novatech would be opening a development office just 30 minutes from Oakwood. "We're expanding anyway," I explained. "And I've realized I want to be closer to home." More surprising still was Sophia's request for an internship with our marketing team. "I still love yoga," she clarified. "But maybe it's time I challenge myself with something new. Something where I actually have to earn my place." My parents too were evolving. My father volunteered to mentor young engineers at Novatech 1 day a week. My mother started a reading program at local schools using our educational software. Small steps, but meaningful ones. As for me, I was learning that true success couldn't be measured in contracts signed or revenues generated. The wealth that mattered most was not in my bank account, but in these renewed connections, in being fully seen and accepted by the people who had known me longest. The path to healing was neither straight nor simple. Old habits sometimes resurfaced. Conversations occasionally grew tense when sensitive topics arose. But we were trying, all of us, to build something better than what we had before. On my 33rd birthday, we celebrated at Romano's, the original restaurant from the year before. No cancelled reservations, no overshadowing priorities, just family honestly connecting. "I've been thinking," my mother said as dessert was served, "about something you said that night when everything changed, about how we appreciated your absence more than your presence." I winced slightly at the memory of my harsh words. "You were right," she continued. "We took your strength for granted. We assumed you needed less from us because you asked for less. That was our failure, not yours." "And my failure was pulling away instead of speaking up," I acknowledged. "We all played our parts in this." My father reached for my hand. "The important thing is that we're writing a new story now. Together." Looking around at their faces, older but newly familiar to me, I realized that the greatest gift of the past year had not been the recognition of my success or even their apologies for past neglect. It was this, the chance to know and be known, to love and be loved, not for what we accomplished or provided, but simply for who we were. The journey of healing is rarely complete, and our family still had work to do. But sitting there in that restaurant that had once symbolized rejection, I felt a profound sense of homecoming. Not to a physical place, but to the truth of belonging. What had begun with a cancelled birthday and an unexpected phone call had become something I never expected, a second chance at family. Not perfect, not without its complications, but real and worth fighting for. Have you ever had to reveal a part of yourself that your family never knew? How did they react? Share your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories about family relationships, personal growth, and finding your true worth. Remember, sometimes the most painful confrontations lead to the most beautiful reconciliations. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you find the courage to be fully seen in your own life.